The Rift's Promise by Cinder Gallagher. The first time Oren saw the rift, he thought it was beautiful. It cut through the canyon like a ribbon of starless night, its edges writhing with a peculiar grace that reminded him of ink in water. The whispers that drifted up from its depths carried promises in languages he couldn't quite grasp, but Cole heard them clearly. They'd been first years together at Skyreach Academy, two boys from nothing who'd proven themselves worthy of joining the elite ranks of Wyvern riders. While other cadets came from long lines of distinguished aviators, with family crests and inherited weapons, Oren and Cole had only their raw talent and desperate determination. Perhaps that's why they'd gravitated toward each other, recognizing in each other's eyes the same hunger that came from having nothing to fall back on. The academy perched like a crown of thorns atop the highest peak of the Razorspine Mountains. Its towers were crafted from black stone that absorbed the light, making the buildings seem to float against the perpetual blanket of clouds below. At night, when the moons rose, the observatory's glass dome caught their light and scattered it like crushed diamonds across the grounds. That's where Oren found Cole most nights now, standing at the edge of the observatory's viewing platform, his dark eyes fixed on the rift below. The Academy's rules strictly forbade students from visiting the observatory after sunset, but rules had never meant much to Cole. "You shouldn't be up here," Oren said one night, his boots clicking against the polished floor. The sound echoed in the vast circular chamber, bouncing off the curved walls and complicated instruments that hung from the ceiling like metallic spiderwebs. Cole didn't turn. "Listen," he whispered, his fingers curled around the stone railing. "Can you hear it?" The wind howled through the canyon, carrying with it the distant cries of rogue wyverns and the ever-present whispers from the rift. Oren tried not to focus on those sounds. They made his skin crawl, like fingers dragging across his spine. "I hear the wind," he said carefully, "and I hear you breaking curfew again." Cole laughed, but there was something wrong with the sound, too sharp, too brittle. "The wind? No, it's so much more than that." He finally turned, and Oren had to suppress a shudder. His friend's face was gaunt, shadows pooling beneath his eyes like bruises. "It's speaking to me, Oren, teaching me things the Academy never would." The air around them thickened, charged with an energy that made Oren's teeth ache. He'd felt this before, during their magecraft classes when they worked with raw power, but this was different, wilder, more primal. "Whatever you think you're hearing, it's not safe," Oren said, taking a step forward. "The rift isn't some textbook puzzle to solve. It's dangerous." "Dangerous?" Cole's lips curved into a smile. "Of course it's dangerous. That's what makes it worth studying. Everything worthwhile has teeth, you know that." Oren did know. They both carried the scars from their first wyvern bonding ceremonies, the ritual marks that proved they'd earned their place among the Skyriders. His own wyvern, Ashbane, had nearly taken his arm off before accepting him as her rider. But this was different. "The Academy's restrictions exist for a reason," Oren pressed. "Remember what happened to Professor Voss when she tried to study the rift? They never even found her body." "Voss was weak," Cole snapped, his voice carrying an edge Oren had never heard before. "She approached it like an academic, with her measurements and theories. The rift doesn't want to be studied, it wants to be understood, to be embraced." As if in response to his words, a surge of energy pulsed from the canyon below, making the observatory's instruments swing wildly in their moorings. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and for a moment, Oren thought he could almost make out words in their susurration. "Listen to yourself," he pleaded, grabbing Cole's arm. His friend's skin was fever-hot beneath his sleeve. "This isn't you. Whatever's down there, it's changing you." Cole yanked his arm free, his eyes flashing with an unnatural light. "No, it's revealing me, the real me, the me I was always meant to be." He turned back to the railing, spreading his arms wide. "We were meant for more than this, more than dusty lessons and carefully controlled spells. The rift is offering us real power, raw, unlimited power." "Power always has a price," Oren said quietly. "Then I'll pay it," Cole shouted, whirling around. The force of his movement sent several star charts fluttering to the floor. "I'm tired of being careful, of being safe. of watching the noble's children get everything handed to them while we scrape and bow and thank them for the scraps they toss our way. His words hung in the air between them, heavy with years of shared resentment. Oren couldn't deny the truth in them. They'd both felt the sting of being scholarship students, of never quite belonging despite their talent. But before he could respond, a sound like thunder rolled up from the canyon. The rift's whispers crescendoed into a keening wail that set every nerve in Oren's body on fire. Through the observatory's dome, he watched in horror as the sky began to turn, darkness blotting out the stars. "It's time," Cole whispered, his face transformed by a wild joy. "Can't you feel it? The rift is opening." The ground beneath them trembled, and somewhere in the distance, a warning bell began to toll. Oren could hear the startled cries of wyverns from their roosts, their powerful wings beating against the night air. "Cole, please." Oren tried one last time, but his friend was already running for the stairs that led to the wyvern launching platform. The next few minutes were chaos. Warning sirens blared across the academy grounds as students and teachers scrambled to their positions. Through the commotion, Oren caught glimpses of Headmistress Ariane shouting orders, her silver hair streaming behind her like a banner as she mounted her wyvern. Oren found Ashbane already awake and restless in her roost, her scales shifting from midnight blue to storm grey, a sure sign of her agitation. She'd always been sensitive to magical disturbances, more so than other wyverns. When he approached, she lowered her massive head, hot breath gusting against his face. "I know, girl," he murmured, pressing his forehead against her scaled snout. "I feel it too." The bond between them thrummed with shared anxiety. Through it, he could sense her unease about the wrongness in the air, the way the rift's power made her want to take wing and flee as far as possible. But she wouldn't, not without him, and not while Cole was in danger. The launch platform was in disorder when they emerged. Junior cadets scrambled to secure loose equipment as senior riders took to the skies. Above them, the purple-black clouds roiled and twisted, shot through with veins of sickly green lightning. The air tasted like metal and burning sugar, making Oren's tongue go numb. "All riders, form up!" Headmistress Ariane's voice cut through the chaos, magically amplified to reach every corner of the academy. Her silver wyvern, Moonshadow, wheeled overhead, its scales reflecting the strange lightning. "This is not a drill. The rift is expanding. Our priority is containment." Oren swung himself onto Ashbane's back, fingers finding their familiar holds between her armored plates. Through the maelstrom, he caught sight of Cole and Scythe. Even at this distance, he could see how Scythe's usually brilliant crimson scales had dulled to the color of dried blood. "Squad leaders, maintain formation." Ariane's voice crackled through the communication crystal at Oren's throat. "Do not, I repeat, do not approach the rift directly." But Cole was already breaking formation, Scythe's powerful wings carrying them into a steep dive toward the writhing darkness below. The rift's edges had begun to spread, tendrils of void reaching up like grasping fingers into the night sky. Oren yanked on his riding goggles and urged Ashbane forward. They plunged through the storm, wind howling past them as they gave chase. Around them, shadow creatures began to emerge from the rift, twisted things that seemed to be made of concentrated darkness, their forms constantly shifting and reforming. "Cole!" Oren's voice was lost to the wind, but he pressed on, dodging between the creatures. "Stand down!" Through the chaos, he caught glimpses of his fellow riders engaged in desperate combat. Ariane sent her wyvern into a spiral, flames erupting from its maw, to incinerate a shadow beast that had gotten too close. Nearby, the Kestrel twins worked in perfect synchronization, their wyvern's tail spikes leaving trails of golden light as they cut through the darkness. But none of it seemed to matter. The rift was growing stronger, its pull becoming physical now. Oren watched in horror as one of the junior cadets, he couldn't even tell who through the chaos, was caught in its grasp. Their wyvern screamed, wings beating frantically against the pull, but it was no use. Both rider and mount vanished into the void, their screams cut off as if they'd never existed. "Fall back." Ariane's command was tinged with desperation now. "All riders, fall back to safe distance. Ashbane banked hard, barely avoiding a tendril of darkness that whipped past them like a striking snake. Through their bond, Orin could feel her exhaustion mounting. The very air around the rift seemed to drain their strength, making each wing beat harder than the last. But ahead of them, Cole showed no signs of tiring. If anything, he seemed energized by their proximity to the rift. Scythe's movements had become erratic, almost puppet-like, as if the wyvern was no longer acting under its own will. They were nearly at the rift's edge now. The whispers had become a roar, 1,000 voices speaking in languages that hurt Orin's mind to hear. Through the tempest, he caught fragments of promises, power beyond imagining, knowledge beyond mortal understanding, secrets that would remake the world. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Cole's voice somehow carried over the chaos, filled with terrible wonder. "This is what they've been hiding from us, Orin. Real magic, not their carefully measured spells and regulated incantations. This is power, in its purest form." Scythe landed at the rift's edge, his claws sinking into stone that seemed to ripple like water. Cole dismounted, moving with an unnatural grace that made Orin's skin crawl. His friend's eyes were completely black now, reflecting the void before them. "Don't do this," Orin pleaded, landing Ashbane a safe distance away. "Whatever it's promising you, it's lying. That's what wild magic does. It twists the truth until you can't see it anymore." "Lying?" Cole laughed, and the sound echoed strangely, as if multiple voices were laughing with him. "The rift doesn't need to lie, Orin. It's the only honest thing in this world. Look around you. Look at what we've become, trained pets, performing tricks for the nobility's amusement. Is that what you wanted when you first bonded with Ashbane? To be a glorified guardsman?" Each word struck like a physical blow because Orin couldn't deny the grain of truth in them. He remembered their first year, staying up late in the dormitory, sharing dreams of becoming great explorers, of discovering new frontiers of magic. Somewhere along the way, those dreams had been replaced by lessons in proper etiquette and acceptable spell usage. But this wasn't the answer. "We can find another way," Orin said, taking a step forward. "Together, like we always have." For a moment, something flickered in Cole's expression, a hint of the friend Orin had known since childhood. But then the rift pulsed, and that moment of humanity was gone, replaced by an eager, hungry look that made him seem like a stranger. "There is no other way," Cole said softly. "This is where true power lives, in the spaces between what they tell us is possible and what really is. And I'm going to claim it." He turned toward the rift, arms outstretched. Behind him, Scythe let out a keening cry that didn't sound entirely natural. The great wyvern's eyes had gone completely white, its scales now the color of old ashes. "Cole, please," Orin's voice broke. "Don't make me watch you die." "Die?" Cole turned back one last time, and his smile was terrible to behold. "Oh, I'm not going to die. I'm going to become something so much more." The rift surged forward, darkness wrapping around Cole like loving arms. For one horrible moment, Orin could see his friend's face transformed with ecstasy and terror in equal measure. Then the darkness consumed him completely, and the rift's edges began to fold in on themselves. Orin screamed his friend's name, but it was lost in the sudden implosion of air as the rift collapsed. The shadow creatures dissolved, the strange storm dissipated, and the night sky returned to its natural state. It was as if nothing had happened at all, except Cole was gone. And in the newfound silence, Orin could still hear the whispers, fainter now, but unmistakable. They spoke of power and transformation, of a price paid and a promise kept. And sometimes, on the darkest nights when he stood watch at the observatory, Orin thought he could hear his friend's voice among them, calling him to follow, to join him in whatever terrible transformation he'd undergone. But Orin had made his own promise, to remember Cole as he was, not as what the rift had made him, to honor their friendship by living, by finding power in the small, human moments that Cole had forgotten in his quest for something greater. Still, he kept watch, because he knew that somewhere in that void between worlds, Cole was waiting,